Hello, lovely people. My name is Frederic Harper. I'm a principal developer advocate at Kube, and today I'm going to talk to you about Get Shit Done the GitOps way. During the talk, when you watch the video, please feel free to ping me on Twitter. I'm at fharper, or share screenshot or things that I've said that you agree or disagree with. I'm all about discussing stuff, and I don't have the only truth. So please connect with me. I'm going to be more than happy to talk to you. So, with that said, let's jump on the talk. We only have 30 minutes together today, so that's going to be a high-level overview. I'm going to try to put as much content as possible with a little bit of demos so you can see how it's working and how you can apply this to your day-to-day work. So let's start with maybe something that you already know, something that you're comfortable with, which is DevOps. So we are used to DevOps, or maybe you're starting to learn about DevOps, and there's that thing called GitOps that is there since a little bit now, but still a concept that is quite new for most people starting, or even people that are in their actual cloud native journey. So when we think about GitOps, when we think about DevOps, we put the application code in a Git repository most of the time, and we're going to have that CI/CD pipeline who's going to basically validate our code and do everything we need and like deploy our code to the cloud, to on-premises. Actually, that delivery pipeline will put your application somewhere. So this is the kind of like process that we're used to when it comes to DevOps. The difference now is that you can also do that with DevOps, but it's an important part of GitOps is that now we think about infrastructure as code. So I'm a big fan of infrastructure as code, IAC. One of the most popular out there is Terraform that helps you to do that. And it's basically, as it says, like it's having your infrastructure as code. So you write down some code that will create your infrastructure, and you still put this in your Git repository. And traditionally, more DevOps way of doing things, you're still going to put your configuration sometimes in your Git repository. So it's kind of like the industry default way of doing things. We're familiar with that. It comes easy now because we've been doing that for a couple of years. And the thing is that there's some flexibility of doing those because it's a principle that is not specific just for cloud native application. You can use that in different type of environment. But now what we're changing when we move toward GitOps is that we're splitting the CI and CD pipeline. So it's still there. You still have continuous integration. You can still do whatever you were doing previously in that part of the pipeline. But there's also another difference. Now, instead of having the Git repository that push things, the CI, the CD part will grab information, will pull the information from the Git repository, and it becomes your source of truth. And I will talk a little more about the difference, why it becomes the source of truth and why it may not have been when it comes to DevOps or using DevOps as your way to manage your application deployment. The things that is maybe something that may not be useful for you when it comes to GitOps is that it's really specific for Kubernetes, because on those pods, you're going to have mechanism that will grab the information from your Git repository to always ensure that you have the latest version on what is in your source of truth, the Git repository. So it's GitOps in a nutshell. And GitOps really help you to manage, as I said, cloud native systems with Kubernetes, but in a declarative way, leveraging Git. So it's a tool you already know and you already use. You can see this as a branch of DevOps. It's really taking its best practices, but with a big emphasis of having Git your source of truth and not the server. So there is some pro and cons about that. So let me show you a little bit about a GitOps repository structure that we're using at Kube. So let me switch my screen here. And hopefully right now you should see my GitOps repository. So that was created when I used the Kube CLI, which is our product, but I'm not here to talk about it. Just to show you one example of how your GitOps repository could be structured. So we have our GitOps repository here. We have our registry /Kube first is just because I call my cluster like that. And you're gonna see there's those YAML file that you may recognize. Those are basically Kubernetes declaration that I have in my GitOps repository. That's gonna be read by Argo CD. So we use Argo CD in our ecosystem to install, update, deploy application on my cluster. So I have my YAML file here. We are using the apps patterns, and here you have different components for different parts of application that are installed in my cluster. So my GitOps repository is my source of truth. If I go back here, I have the Terraform folder, which is my infrastructure as code here. So in my case, there's kind of like three parts. So there's a part where our platform lets you manage your different Git repository that are associated with your cluster. So in here, if I go in repos.tf, I have two GitOps. I have two Git repository that were created for me when I created my cluster, and we use a Terraform provider to manage and create those. If I go back here, I'm also managing my users directly from the Git repo. And you may say, like, Fred, it's starting to be a little bit weird, but like, bear with me. I'm going to share a little more about the pros and cons of using that method. So here, let's say I have a developers.terraform file, and I could have the developer one user directly by doing a commit on my Git repository. And also there's a third part for us where we manage different secrets using HashiCorp Vault that are all connected together to the application that are pre-installed on your cluster. So that's just one way of having or defining the architecture of your GitOps repository. This is what we've done. It's a culmination of a couple of years of experience and also based on the needs that we have to build our platform. So everything is there. It's the source of truth of my Kubernetes cluster right now. So let's go back to the slides. And about that. Now, okay, I introduced you a little bit about GitOps. Let me talk to you about the GitOps principles. So I show you a little bit how it looks like compared to DevOps, but there's some principles. So GitOps, it's not a standard per se, but there is the Open GitOps group that is working on some principle, and usually people, when we talk about GitOps, we try to follow those principles. So the first one is that it needs to be declarative. A system that is managed by GitOps must have its desired state expressed declaratively. So everything should be in the Git repository. It's kind of like another way to say that. It should be version and immutable. I don't know why I struggle with that word in English. So the desired state is basically stored in a way that enforces immutability. So the servers are never modified after the deploy, in the sense that like you don't go yourself there and modify stuff. It's version because you're using Git, and because you're using Git, you retain a complete version history. So that's kind of like one of the benefits of GitOps. It's pulled automatically, so you don't have to push information. It's really there's software agents that automatically pull the desired state declaration from the source, and there's benefits for that. And there's some like maybe not cons, but you may see some part of it that may not be as beneficial. So I really want to talk, to be honest, about GitOps. So I'm going to come back just right after about the pro and cons of using the GitOps principle, or actually thinking about using GitOps when going through your cloud native journey. And the fourth principle is continuously reconcile. So this is also one of the pros, is that the software agents, because they continuously pull the information, they observe the actual state of your cluster versus the desired state that is in your Git repository. So it would always attempt to apply the desired state. Hence, the source of truth is being Git. So there's the benefit about that I'm going to talk right now. So the benefits when it comes about GitOps, it's really you're using familiar tools and processes. Git workflows. Those are the things that you hopefully already know and use day to day at work. There's also the benefits of infrastructure as code. You have the change history because of the file versioning. It's easy to revert, and there's the code change revision processes. In the best world scenario, you should always never commit directly on the repository. You should do a PR, and someone from your team, at least one person from your team, should review the changes. So that's really good for accountability, but also that's really good to be sure that you're not making some mistakes because there is someone else who will look at your change. There's faster deployment and iteration, and it's easily reproducible because you have the secret sauce. Everything is in your Git repository. There's also no cluster drift, which means difference over time because of server changes. So, when we're doing DevOps, like maybe you had no cluster drift because everybody was already using your Git repository as the source of truth. But if we want to be honest, it's rarely the case. So sometimes there's an issue on the server side, there's an issue in something in prods, and what are you going to do? You're going to go in the prod server, and you're going to connect with SSH, and you're going to try to fix things, and that's going to work, and it's going to be beautiful, and you're going to forget about it. So you have a change that is important for production that is only on the production server. But now, because everything goes through your GitOps repository, everything is there, so there's nothing on the server, so you're not losing changes. There is no cluster drift, as I said. From my point of view, it really brings greater collaboration, auditability, and simplification of access control. Again, always coming back about the source of truth. I see this as more secure because there is no need for individual infrastructure access. There's also no need for your CD pipeline to have access to your Kubernetes cluster because it's the other way around. We're not pushing things, we're pulling things inside the cluster. There's more transparency because all the Git manipulation, and as I said, there is no these agents are running inside the cluster, so no need for the CD to have access to the server. When we think about GitOps too, there's the cost saving because there's the automation part versus the manual execution, deployment, testing, easily reverting or roll back some changes. So it's prone to less error, and it's, as I said, it's also easily revert. Like you can easily reproduce and revert. So also, I would argue that there is some cost saving there, and it's also a great approach for a simple stateless disaster recovery model because there is no server state. There is only like the source of truth state. If I want to be honest, there are some challenges, or maybe we could even say some cons when it comes to GitOps. So the learning curve can be a little bit steep, especially if you have no knowledge of Git, if you have no real knowledge of infrastructure as code, or some of the best practices, or maybe you're not even totally familiar with DevOps approach. It can, what I see as a benefit, some people could see this as like a challenge or a cons because there's more layer of approval because everything goes through Git. So in theory, as I said before, if my team was there, they would be like, no, Fred, don't like when you commit directly on the repo. Sometimes we do this in demo and live stream, and I'm always complaining. And I say that I'm going to do that in my demo right now just for the sake of time, but like in a day-to-day in production, when you work on your product, you should not do that. So you do a PR, someone will review your changes at all levels, on the infrastructure side, on the application side, or everything you need to run your cluster. So it means more approval, but it also brings all the benefits that I said before. It can be a little bit harder to customize the process. It's Kubernetes-centric, as I was saying before. And, things can go wrong between the source of truth and the CD action. So, it depends on the tech you use. And you know what? Lastly, it's not magic. It doesn't fix bad practices. So I'm sorry about that. I know you were maybe hoping for some magic solution when it comes to GitOps. It's not the case. So obviously, it's just a tool. But I firmly believe that it's a tool that really helps you to, have a better cloud native journey and ensure that your processes in place are helping you moving forward and be successful in your endeavor. So let me show you a little bit more how this is exactly working. So let me go back to my browser here, and you're gonna see here I'm in Argo CD. So it's fine if you don't really know Argo CD. It's one of the tools that we really like out there. There's like Flux CD. There's other tools out there that help you to manage your GitOps and your CD pipeline when it comes to managing GitOps. But we decided to use Argo. This is the tool we known. We liked it. And if I go here and I search for an application called Flappy, it does not exist, and it's normal because it does not exist. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go in my registry folder. I'm going to go here and I'm going to say I want to add a new file. So add file, create new file. Going to call this flappy.yaml, and I'm going to be lazy. I have my shortcut here. As you can see, it's a YAML declaration for an application called Flappy Bird. That's gonna take a chart and install a version of, it's basically Flappy Bird. We rename it to Flappy Kube. And I have my ingress route here, because I want to be able to access it with flappykube.kubefirst.dev. So if you want to try this at home, I can share your link if you share with me, but that link won't work because I'm doing this on a local cluster on Key3D right now. So I'm going to do the unthinkable. I'm going to commit directly on my on the main branch. So add flappy Kube, and I'm going to commit directly here. I'm going to save that. And when I'm going to go back here, so I'm going to refresh, go CD. I'm going to go, actually, you should have probably checked in the registry before. So I'm gonna be sure to sync. So it should sync automatically. I think the default is 3 minutes. I never remember. So if I synchronize that, I should see at some point here, oh, registry, something is working here. I should see my Flappy Kube here. It's out of sync, so it's syncing right now. And if I give it a little bit of time, so what's happening here, the applications would be exactly here. So what's happening here is that Flappy is being out of sync. So, you know, where I was thinking about like trying to get always the latest state. So Argo CD, check my Git repository, realize that, oh, the application was deleted. It's not something that should happen. So sometimes Argo CD is doing some weird stuff, but the application will come back right away. So if I just fire sync again, that should be back, and we should see Flappy Kube. I don't know how to, yeah, Flappy here. So it's going to happen here. In a second, it's going to be here. There we go. Flappy now. Let's go see. So it should be in the process of being deploying. I'm gonna refresh that. Still happening. It's out of sync. And what I can go here, I can check the diff, and you're gonna see that like there's a difference. So it's not deployed yet. There's a lot of difference. But the job of Argo CD, as I was starting to explain, is that it will check on my Git repository. It will look at the information that is there. It will compare to what's deployed on my cluster, and it should update the registry. Oh, what happened here? So it's still syncing, and we should see something. So what's going to happen now? Let me just go back to the presentation part, and we'll come back to, oh, actually, I think it's good now. I think it was able to deploy. If I go here and I access Flappy Kube, it's a page not found. So what's happening here? I don't know what's happening here. Let me check what's happening. Maybe I made a mistake with my YAML file. So it's sync. Oh, I know what's happening. I know what's happening. This should be good. The chart version. Flappy Kube. If I check the certificate, should be good. That's out of sync. There we go. Not sure what happened here. So now it's syncing, it's installing. Gonna give it a couple of seconds and everything should be good now. Oh my god. So, little live demo problem, and now I have my Kube application that's been installed for from my Argo, actually from my GitOps repo. I should not play and try to explain something because it's obviously not working. I cannot do the same two things at the same time. So let me go back to my talk. So you see I install the application by adding a YAML file and Argo CD, fetch it from the GitOps repository, install it, deploy it with one small hiccup because, that was a quote-unquote live demo. So some resources, if you're starting your GitOps journey, there is the gitops.com/open-GitOps, open-GitOps/project. This is the Open GitOps project or working group that I was talking before. So really a good place to start to learn more about the GitOps principle or to get more information about it. A great repository from Weaveworks. It's Awesome GitOps. So if you know the Awesome repository that you usually have on GitHub, there are a bunch of awesome resources about specific topics. So this one is a pretty good one too. And you obviously, I need to say it, if you want to replicate and start to play with GitOps, we have an open source product that is free. It's available at github.com/kubefirst/kubefirst because the name of the project is the name of the company. And you can try it on AWS, Google Cloud, which is actually in beta right now, but like AWS and Civo, they are production ready. And we have support for Google Cloud. DigitalOcean, Vultr, they're in beta right now, but they're going to get out of beta really, really soon. And you can also, if you don't want to go on the cloud right now and pay for resources to learn about GitOps, we have the Key 3D experience that you can also use locally. You just need to have Docker desktop. Everything is in the documentation, so feel free to use that. So I forgot to remove that slide. It's a recording of the talk. It's not a live conference. But if you have any question, don't stop there. It's not because you're watching a recording of that talk that you need to stop there. So you can go on kubefirst.io/Slack. We have a GitOps channel, and you don't even have to use our product. It's just like if you have question about GitOps, if you have question about the things that I've said during my talk, you go there. We're just passionate people about the GitOps principle. We're going to help you. Again, even if you don't use your product, we're just that kind of friendly people. And also, if you don't want to go in the Slack channel because, I don't know, you're afraid that I'm going to try to sell you how to use our product, you can always contact me. Send me an email, fred@kubefirst.io. Ping me on Twitter. I spend some time there, or you can even connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you prefer face-to-face, so unless you live in Montreal in Canada where I live, if it's the case, I would be more than happy to go for a coffee with you. But if you don't, we can have like virtual coffee chat. So you go on fred.dev/coffee and you're going to have access to my Calendly and you can book a free 30 minutes discussion with me. We can talk about GitOps. We can talk about anything you want. I'm just a social person. And if there is a way for you, or for me actually, to help you, I'm going to be more than happy to do that. So on that note, I hope it helps you to learn a little more about GitOps. And hopefully that's going to be a principle that you will be able to use in your day-to-day at work. So on that note, have a good rest of the conference.